Good afternoon and welcome back to Allergic to Stupidity. Today's chit chat, first of all, I hope everybody's having a really good day. If you're enjoying listening to me rant or discuss things, please hit like, share, and subscribe. I can see that the views are increasing, which is nice. Makes me feel like people are listening. They might agree, they might disagree, but at least you're up there sort of listening, or people are hearing me, which makes me feel good. So please like, share, and subscribe. Now, today's chit chat has been something that's sort of been on the back burners for a while, and I needed to understand it. But if you actually go to this website, it's like 900 pages, and that's Project 2025. And it came out of the Heritage Foundation, of the US, and it has been the guiding light or the guiding beacon for Trump's administration. And during his campaigning, he distanced himself as much as he could from it because it was already causing controversy. But now that he's in the office, those people that were involved in designing 2025, Project 2025, suddenly are his right hand. And what's happening in that office is scary. And if you compare Donald Trump last time, like just the man and how he talks and how he walks and everything else, to now, like 5-6 years later, you can see an honest decrease in his coherence conversations. I mean, he's always been one that just sort of goes off and left and says whatever, but I find listening to him, and I don't like listening to him, but I find that he's not as coherent. His trains of thoughts are not as together, which reinforces in my mind that there's other people behind him pulling the strings, and that he's just the puppet. And I'm not going to point my fingers at who it is. I mean, we know that Elon Musk is always right there, and some of the things that Elon Musk is doing is like, on wood that I'm in Canada, because he's having people fired left, right, and center for absolutely no reason, just because that's wasting too much money. But he has been known, for people who've worked with him with Tesla, he is doesn't like any excess in his running of businesses. So that mentality from running Tesla, coming into government offices, you can see how that connection is. And people who have worked with him, he says, you never knew that your job was guaranteed, because if he could find a way or felt that you won't need it, you're gone. And he wasn't picking on you. He's just, that's gone, doesn't need it anymore. So what I wanted to look at today was the BBC's condensed version of Project 2025. So let me share my thing. We got to find it. There we go. All right. So this is Project 2025, and you can see at my top on the address bar, it's out of BBC. And right there, and everybody knew it was a right-wing wish list. All right. Now this, I'm trying to find a date. This is like a year ago, June the 24th, but updated like a week ago on the 14th of this month. So there's the little intro. Now, where did it come from? It's from the Heritage Foundation, and it's from a very prominent right-wing think tank. Now, here comes, you've heard me complain about right-wing cults. This would be pushing a cult. They have found a way that they say this is the right way. It's if everybody believed it this way, that everything would be fantastic. But guys, we're humans, and everybody has their own opinion about what's going to work. So this is no different than the very right-wing extremists in the Israel parliament. Okay. And it's been kicking around. You can see it's been kicking around since Ronald Reagan. All right. So let's just run down to some of the things. So the government proposes the entire federal bureaucracy, including independent agencies such as the Department of Justice, be placed under direct presidential control. Utilitarian executive theory. Okay. Is that not pushing a monarchy? And I do believe in 1776, that was one of the reasons they fought for independence, was they didn't like the idea that one person was above the law. And if your whole entire bureaucracy is under one person, that puts that one person above the law, because the legal system is working underneath him. I mean, even King Charles has to follow the laws, which he would anyways, but okay. So proposals are also called for eliminating job protection for thousands of government employees who could then be replaced by political appointees. So relating back to Putin or Hitler or Napoleon or the guy that was running Syria until they had a coup and he ran away to Russia. He kept all those people close to him that are going to agree with him. And that's exactly what's happening here. Now, we will all say, it doesn't matter what country, we'll all say that there's a lot of civil servants that maybe we don't need. Okay. And this document labels the FBI as bloated, arrogant, and increasingly lawless organization. It calls for drastic overhauls of the agency, as well as complete elimination of the Department of Education. Okay, teacher's hat on here. Excuse me? Now, what they're saying is that every state should be in control of their own education system. Well, when you do that, and we'll just bring it to Canada, that means that Ontario could design what kind of curriculum it wants, and Quebec could design what curriculum it wants, and so could Manitoba, and so could, and so could, and so could. But what that results in is that what my students are learning in British Columbia may not be the same as what's being learned in Ontario. And by having a Canadian curriculum, which we do, it's not down to exact precise this and this and this, but it's a general in grade ones, this is what they're going to learn. In high school, this is what they need to learn. So we'll find careers in civics in Ontario. We also find it out west in Alberta. Okay, because we're going, okay, these kids are in high school now. They need to start having some idea of what kind of post-secondary education they're going to need for whatever career they have. So having a Department of Education in the States, and that's the Common Core curriculum, which I know it drives a lot of Americans crazy. Not because there's the structure and says this is what should be taught in each grade in every state, but is the big push on technology, and they just need to memorize it and they don't need to understand it. That's where a lot of people with Common Core curriculum in the United States have a problem with. We have the Canadian curriculum. England has the British curriculum. So, but the whole country has a curriculum. Getting rid of the Department of Education throws it down to the states, and now they're not going to have the continuity across. Okay. So we're going to cut, that takes care of the government. And we're just quick and couple clicks on each of these. Okay. Abortion and family. Now, this is where this is a personal choice for abortions. Okay. This is where I find it's not right-wing cults, is not so much we think this is how the government should be run, but it's down to telling me as the individual how I'm supposed to live my life. Okay. Now, document does not call, when it comes to abortions, does not call for an outright ban. And he says he wouldn't sign such a law, but I do believe even in the States, for it to become a law, it has to go through Congress and Senate and be passed that way. It's not something that Trump himself could do. Mind you, with everything he's doing lately, anything's possible. However, it proposes withdrawing the abortion pill from the market and using existing and little enforced laws to stop the drug from being sent through the post. Okay. Now, if I understand correctly, the abortion pill is the morning after pill. All that does, the morning after pill, is that it causes the woman to go into an early menstrual cycle. So if perchance, perhaps, maybe, the sperm found the egg, it hasn't had a chance to adhere to the uterus. So it's never had a chance to get to being a fetus. Okay. Now he's going, abortion laws should be left to individual states. And that tends to be Trump's push, is that we're going to leave it too. Okay. And I think he's doing that to save face and to keep people semi-happy. He doesn't want to be the one that says it. Okay. Now, we now have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the health secretary down there. The CDC is not allowed to publish anything. There's a measles outbreak in Texas, but the CDC is not allowed to talk about it. So there's going to be viruses and bacteria traveling around the country that nobody is going to know about because the CDC isn't allowed to say. Immigration, we know that that's his big push. So this one doesn't. But notice is this what he's saying? This is all coming from Project 2025. Okay. Project 2025 authors suggest dismantling the Department of Homeland Security and combining it with other immigration enforcement units in other agencies, creating a much larger and more powerful border policing operation. Okay, this goes with my, even up here, when we have leaders saying we're going to get rid of this and this and this, my brain goes, but how are you going to compensate for the loss of that income? So if we say we're going to get rid of the GST during Christmas, well, that was really nice. Little break for us at Christmas time. But what's replacing the money that the government earns from that GST cut during Christmas? So when he comes and says we're going to do this and this and this, and we're going to increase the border patrol, but we're not going to increase your taxes, where are you getting the money to pay for this? Okay. On the issue, his administration promises to go to a slightly different direction and potentially much farther than Project 2025 proposals. The catch on that is I'm hearing time and time again of stories where people are being deported even though they have a green card. And they're married. So they're married to an American and they have a green card, but ICE is deporting them anyways. There have been people that come to the Canadian border who are terrified. They have a green card and they are terrified they're going to be deported back to where they don't want to go. They came to the States to get away from whatever lifestyle they had there, and they are terrified. So they're coming to Canada, and the border people here are going, do you have proof that you have a job? And they're going, well, no, then I'm sorry, but we can't let you in because that's what our border security is supposed to do. So you can see that there is a fear there. And the fear among this LGBTQ community is really high. Okay. Energy. Now, I do know that I just had to click a button. Sorry, guys, to keep this recording. That he is a great one for saying climate change doesn't exist. Well, I'm sitting here with, I don't know how much snow this year in my area, where last year, my 20-year-old who was learning how to drive never had to worry about icy roads. And all of a sudden this year we have this stack. Like, so that continuity and the going up and down, climate change is real. Okay. So he's ramping up fossil fuel productions because he doesn't believe in it. And guess what? Here we go. Project 2025 proposes slashing federal funding for research and investment in renewable resources, and calls for the next president to stop the war on oil and natural gas. So that was they were calling on, this was before the election in November. So they're screaming you got to stop the war on oil. Guys, it's okay. Like, we're not saying turn the oil taps off now. Let's work on changing the our emphasis and our dependence on oil to other things that will create new jobs and not have such a deadly effect on the earth. Okay, but here's the catch. We sitting here in Canada, we're hearing this stuff come from 2025 and Trump. Guess who we're also hearing it from? We're also hearing it from the Conservatives, whether it's Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, or Pierre Poilievre. Like, they're saying the same thing. Now, theirs isn't as extreme, but it's still that mentality that it's either or. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be A and B. And let's just work at making it more the B, the more environmentally friendly things. Because eventually we're going to run out of oil, though experts say there's lots there, but that's Arnold Schwarzenegger said, even if there's lots there for the next 50, 60, 100 years, eventually it's going to run out. Let's start worrying about it now. Okay. Economic advisors suggest that a second Trump administration should slash corporate and income tax, abolish the Federal Reserve, and even consider a return to a gold-backed currency. All right. I understand the logic. The logic is if we slash the corporate tax rate, that the corporations will pass that savings down to the individual person. Reality check. No, they're not going to. Give me a break. Income taxes. Okay, whose income taxes? The guys that are making $20 million a year? Or you and me that's making $40,000 a year? Okay. The only one I'll have that I sort of agree with is that one. And the only reason I have a thing with that, sort of agree with that one, is because it really bothers me that everything is compared to a country's, one particular country's currency and one particular country's economy. And it happens to be the States. And I'm not knocking the States here. It's just, why should my dollar always be compared to how you're doing, or how Britain's pound being compared to how the US is doing, or the euro, or the Australian dollar, or New Zealand, or China, or the yen, or Russia? Like, it should be something that is not connected directly to the productivity of a certain country. That's why I have a problem with that one. Okay. We've already seen this one happen. I can have my grumbles about education on that one. He ended diversity, quality, and inclusion programs and decreed that the government departments should only recognize two genders. Well, that sounds really good, but that gets to be, can easily lead, and that doesn't matter what country it is, lead to people only hiring those people that they know. Or if you happen to be a boss who's slightly prejudiced and slightly racist, doesn't have to be full-blown KKK, you're going to have a tendency to hire more white people, even though the Black person or the Asian person might be the best person for the position. Right. And so I have massive problems with that. I will pat Costco in the US went, no, we're going to keep the DEI. So they've kept that program. This is another one. Documents call for greater school choices, essentially subsidizing religious and private schools with public funds, which was also a subject of an early Trump executive order. Okay, here's the teacher's hat on. I hate that. I honestly, schools and education should not be combined. You going to school, you are going there to learn your ABCs, your 1, 2, 3s, and some humanities and health and things like that. You should not be going in and learning this stuff with a Catholic leaning or an Anglican leaning or a Jewish leaning or a Muslim leaning. Why? Because you're becoming in a little tiny box and you're not seeing the whole world. You're not getting a greater picture. So if somebody is only going to, and I'm just picking a Muslim school, because this is what it is subsidizing religious and private schools with public money, then you're only going to see it from that leaning. All right. And that's where I have a problem. This is why I honestly say religion and education do not belong together. My problem with this one is public money for private schools. Well, I do struggle with private schools, but there are times when I can see the use. So if we have somebody whose children, somebody who's really famous, so you have Brad Pitt or a leader of a country, whether it's Justin Trudeau's children or it's, well, Trump's kids are all grown up, but you have somebody who is in a high ranking spot or is very famous, the ability to take their child to a private school increases their safety because they're not exposed to everybody knowing that that's Justin Trudeau's kids, right? The last name Trudeau is not that uncommon. It's fairly common. And so it allows somebody who's in a very sensitive position, like the leader of the UK, to know that his children are going to a place that's going to be relatively secure. So why is my public money being used to support that private school? Private schools still in Ontario still have to follow the same rules and regulations and organization that the public schools do. So we don't have a choice. In fact, is private schools have to jump through more hoops to prove they're doing what they're doing and that they're checkmarking all those boxes. One of the private schools, it was an international school, so it was kids coming from all over the world. Another private school I've worked with is aimed for or designed for those kids who are in sports. So it's like grade 5 to grade 12, and those particular students are heavily into whatever their sport is. And so it's 2 classes a day with a short lunch so they can get out, so they can get to the practices and their drills and the rehearsals and all the rest of it. Okay. So that was why I don't have that. Again, I've already talked about abolishing the Department of Education. I think that's no, because then you're not going to have the continuity across the US to make sure that every state is teaching the same thing. So if your child moves from Florida to Alaska, you really want to know that your child is learning the same thing at the same grade level. If they're down in Florida, they're up in Alaska. Same thing in Canada. I want to know that if my child moves from British Columbia to Newfoundland, they are basically learning exactly the same thing. The structure of it can be slightly different. So Quebec literally has high school and then they have CEGEP. So you do up to grade 10, and then CEGEP is that 2-year program for them to go on to university. Or you can finish high school and go other directions. I think some of my kids down here in Ontario would love that. All right. So the writing of it was massive undertaking, $22 million. They flipped that to pounds just so people can understand it in England. Do you think what you could do with 22 million pounds? That is fantastic. Okay. Democrats have indicated they will continue to oppose the proposal and highlight the effects of Project 2025. Okay. So that just gives you a really short overlay of exactly the main ones that come with Project 2025. You can go online and you can find the 900-page 2025. Okay. So here is the document itself. We'll just click on that. Fine. Yeah, we're still on that same page. No, that actually took us, you can see 922 pages. And they just took me to that. Okay, so let me stop sharing and you can see my beautiful face again. Okay, so my concerns, because one of them is to put the family back centered into the society. And it's like people are reminiscing back and going, oh, it was so wonderful back then. And it's looking at a family as being this structured little thing, that it's a mommy and a daddy and 2 kids or multiple kids, because there is a push in the States to have tons and tons of kids. But that's not the only way a family can be defined. And that's where I'm going. These guys have this idea of how it's supposed to be. And therefore, you have to do it that way to make everybody happy. Well, it doesn't work that way. So I've had 2 or 3 friends in England who they were raised by their grandparents. Mom and dad wanted to work. So mom and dad worked and lived with grandma and grandpa. So it was this big family. But she said, my friend said, it was my grandparents that raised me. Is that the kind of family structure that these people at 2025 are thinking about? If I have a child who's an orphan for whatever reason, and there's 2 women, this one kills me, 2 women that want to raise that child because they happen to be lesbians, are they going to be okay with that? Because it's not a mommy and a daddy. It's 2 women. But here's what kills me. They would be more comfortable with 2 women raising that child than 2 men. Thank you very much. That's in the box, thinking this is the only way it can be. And yet Anderson Cooper is gay and has 2 boys. Yeah, they're both boys. And he will show you, he's got shorts of him playing with his boys and having a wonderful time. And his significant other, they've split, but his significant other is still part of the boys' lives, and they're doing a wonderful job raising the kids. I've run into kids at the same thing. It's 2 moms, and they're fine. And people will say something. They say, yeah, so what? I've got people who love me. I have a situation close to me where people go, oh, he doesn't have his mommy. I went, he is so loved, it's ridiculous. Yeah, but he needs his mommy. No, he needs to be loved. He needs to know he's loved, or she needs to know he's loved. Or she's loved, I should say. And that's what's important. It doesn't matter. So having people at 2025 say, this is how the family should be structured, bothers the crap out of me, because you're telling me how to live my life. And if I'm a good person and I'm not hurting anybody, then that's what's important, nothing else. Anyways, I have got 3:24. Okay, guys, take care. I hope you have a really good time. And that was just an overview of the 3 or 4 main things of Project 2025. And if you go online, you can find it, all 922 pages of it. And you can see how it's coming out in Trump's administration. My concern is we have MAGA down there, we have Canadian MAGA up here, and that they're falling for it. And that's what I'm afraid of, is that these people are going to start falling for it and saying, oh, this is the right way. No, there is not a right way to do something. As long as your actions are not hurting other people, that's all that matters. Because there is a push in the States that every woman is supposed to have at least 2 kids. It's like, yeah, right. Some of us have a lot more than 2 kids, and some of us don't. It's all that matters. What matters is you're happy. There you go, guys. Take care. See you next time.